It all starts with the doctor being a good leader. And that's the problem. Most doctors don't want to lead because it's not in their personality. Most doctors just want to fix teeth. Sorry, a wake-up call. You can't just fix teeth. You got to build a team. And if you can't do it, you have to hire the right person that's going to help you, and you have to support that person.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tao. I want to start off by thanking the sponsors, both the Doc Sites and Dental Intelligence, for their support, allowing me to come to your inbox or your podcast network every single Friday at 5 a.m. So today's episode is called Treating People, Not Patients. My guest is Dr. Michael Sonick. He's a periodontist in Connecticut, but I wanted to have him on this podcast because he wrote this exceptional book called Treating People, Not Patients. It's all about customer service and treating patients really well. Please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, Dr. Michael Sonick. Mike, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let me read your bio. Michael Sonick, DMD, is an internationally known, highly regarded authority in the field of dental implantology and periodontology. A full-time practicing periodontist in Fairfield, Connecticut, he is also a frequent guest lecturer in the international program at NYU School of Dentistry and the University of Connecticut School of Dental Medicine. He's the author of the book Treating People, Not Patients, and co-editor of the multi-language textbook Implant Site Development. So to begin with, why don't you expand on your bio at all, if you want to?
What is not in my bio is what happened before I became a dentist. And that started when I was a lifeguard, when I was working in my father's furniture store, moving furniture, refinishing things. But really, I think what was the impetus for me writing this book and for me practicing the way I do is working in restaurant industry. So I spent a few summers in Kennebunkport, Maine, and Saratoga Springs, helping putting myself through college. And I worked as a waiter. I worked as a bartender. I worked as a sous chef. I worked as a cocktail piano player. All these things were in the restaurants. And that's where I really started to learn about customer service. So my bio is all about doing dentistry and doing procedures. And that's not what the book is about. Now, that's what we learn in dental school. In dental school, what do they teach us? They teach us how to cut a prep, how to fill it, how to take out a tooth, maybe how to diagnose, maybe how to treatment plan. That's another topic, but they really are procedure oriented. My daughter's a dentist and she went to the University of Texas at San Antonio, one of the top 5 dental schools in the country, but she came out of there doing hundreds and hundreds of restorations. She's really good at doing procedures. But the other part is that she knows how to treat people. Now, I've taught her because she's my daughter and she's 35 now and a practicing dentist. She has those concepts, but she didn't learn that in school. So I think my bio, while it may be impressive to a dentist, is not really impressive to patients. They don't care if I'm a fellow or a diplomat they don't even know what a periodontist is when they come to see me.
It's really funny you say that because as you know, I bought my practice from a dentist who had passed away, who was good friends with some of the people you know. And he was a master of the Academy of General Dentistry, people were asking me why I wasn't an MAGD. And I bought the practice. I wasn't even a fellow yet. So you think patients don't care, but sometimes they do. But I agree with you 100% on most of the stuff you just said. So I'm curious. Let's talk about the book. So I'm curious, what inspired you you wrote numerous textbooks as we discussed. What inspired you to get into a different genre of writing on customer service?
I have always been involved in customer service since the day I opened my practice. I graduated dental school a long time ago, 1979. So I've been a practicing dentist for about 44 years. And I opened up my practice in downtown Fairfield in a relatively small town. You've been there. 65,000 people. There were 5 periodontists in that town. People said, don't open up there. It's the worst place to open up. And I decided to open up a boutique practice by myself with, I had 2 chairs. And a 650 square foot office at that time. And I really got into, decorating the office, making it seem really nice. And so my whole career has been about customer service. When I was a resident, I used to bring in little cassette tapes. Remember some of your audience may not know what those are, but that was before digital dentistry. I had cassette tapes and I had 20 of them. And I had a Willie Nelson, I had some Handel, I had other classical musics, I had some Brubeck, I had some jazz, I had some rock. It was before rap, so I didn't even have any rap back then because rap wasn't yet invented. So I'd have those for the patients, and I'd have sunglasses. And so this is before OSHA. I'd make all my patients wear sunglasses, for one, eye protection, which we should do now, but 2, to darken the room. And I'd offer them a choice of music. And then when I worked in a mall, because that's where I started. I started as a mall dentist. I worked in the Galleria Mall, White Plains. And that was an interesting experience. I worked there with a guy named Jeff Shapiro, who you may know. He's probably the most successful dentist that nobody knows in Manhattan. He's got a 15-chair office in downtown Manhattan. He has the whole floor of the Trinity building with a dental lab, a teaching center. And he has a relatively low profile, but he's extremely successful, and he's very good at customer service. And he was working in that mall with me. And so one weekend, Jeff and I go into the mall because it was filthy, and we painted it. We hired the dental assistants. We bought the paint. We painted it. We bought artwork for our own rooms because I wanted to give the patients a very good experience. So I wrote the book later in my career, but I've been practicing these principles since day one. And it was sort of like one of my coaches, my neuro-linguistic programming coach, talks about, John O'Connor. He says, you're unconsciously competent. You know what you're doing, but you don't know why you're doing it. And when he said that to me, I realized I've been teaching customer service during my courses. When I teach a course on bone grafting, I have to talk about the importance of giving patients choices, of being able to be a co-therapist with the patient, getting the patient involved so that they're educated. So I've always had those principles in practice, and I can't teach clinical dentistry without rolling some of those in because they're part and parcel. And I said, I should probably write down exactly what I do because I'm not sure how I do what I do. So I know how to do a surgery. I know how to take out a 15C and make an incision, in the sulcus or reverse valve or whatever. Those have been taught to me, but I never really worked out exactly how a conversation works. And by doing podcasts with people like you, by writing and doing blogs, it becomes clearer and clearer the path that I've taken. We often say that we don't know where we are and how we got here until we look into the rearview mirror. So I look in the rearview mirror and I go, this is why I'm where I am. And these are all the experiences that have gotten me to this point.
It's funny. You mentioned the sunglasses and the music, which was way before times now. When I bought my practice in 2007, I created a unique set of forms for the patient to fill out. One of them is called Please Handle Me with Care. I wanted to find out exactly what they didn't like about coming to the dentist. Okay. They didn't like lying back for long periods of times. They didn't like they didn't like cotton in their mouth. They didn't like the sound of the drill. They wanted to know the cost up front. There was a whole checklist, and people said they've never had anybody ask them for that. I also had a comfort menu that they want blankets and pillows and paraffin wax for their hands, or pre-medication, or, if they wanted a specific type of music. At the time, I would get it for an iPod. iPods were big back then. So, I agree 100%. I've always been, customer centric or patient centric, from a customer service perspective. That was like the first and foremost, because you knew if they gave them a great experience, they'd come back to the office. So I'm in complete agreement with you there. So, I'm curious. So, I talk a lot about when it comes to selling dentistry, and I call it the art of the sale. I talk about establishing rapport with a patient. Okay, you establish rapport, you establish trust with them. So, talk about some of the ways that you found it really good, or a great way to establish this rapport and trust, even engagement with your patients.
Well, I'll start with a funny story. Back in 1986, I was in practice 1 year. I went to a customer service lecture. It was given by a guy named Harvey Sarner. Do you remember that name?
Sure. Yep. He's the CPA. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he passed away. And I walked into the room. With a guy named Fred Kriegel. He's a prosthodontist in Scarsdale. And he and I were co-residents at Emory. We walked into the room, and we were the youngest people in the room by about 30 years. Everybody was, looked like I do now. And they were all retirement age. And Harvey Sarner gets up and he says, there was a mistake in the brochure. It said that this was a practice management customer service lecture. It's not. It's really about financial planning for end of retirement sale. He says, for those of you who are in the wrong room, I'll give you the customer service lecture now. And he says, it's 4 words: be nice to people. And that's it. So that's what I try to do in my practice and in my life. I try to be nice to the people that are there. So how do you establish the rapport? Now, you talk about sales. For me, sales is education. Right. So I'm an educational dentist. I'm a teacher. I've been teaching, since I got out of my residency and before, and I've never not taught. I love teaching, and I really feel that makes me a better dentist. But I've also teach my patients. So when a patient comes in, I want to establish rapport, and I do that by making them at ease. So one thing I think everybody in your listeners should all know: when a patient walks into our office, they have an overwhelming amount of fear. Okay. And it's like you talked about, their fear of what? Pain, unknown, cost, time, They don't trust you. I don't care. I don't care if you've got 150 or 500 5-star ratings. I never gave you a 5-star rating because you haven't treated me. And my average patient, because I'm a periodontist, is 65 years old and come to into my office needing thousands of dollars worth of reconstruction of dentistry that was done over the course of their lives. They come with multiple missing teeth, caries, periodontal disease, undiagnosed treatment that wasn't followed through. Maybe they saw really good people, but I think the biggest problem that my patients have is they never trusted their previous dentist, so they never did what the dentist said. So what's the most important thing we do in our practice? Probably teach a patient how to brush and floss and tell them the importance of getting routine recall. So at my initial visit, I say to them, I said, I want to congratulate you. There's a number of things that I say. I don't say the same thing every time, but I walk into that office, and before I even meet that patient, they've already established rapport. I say to, when I'm teaching, and I say to my other colleagues, I go, if I don't get a patient to say yes to treatment after I meet them, I've blown it because they've already been set up. I don't mean set up in a negative way, but there's a sense of it's manipulation. It really is, because that's what marketing is. It's a way of manipulating. It's a way of showing people the value of what they really need and elevating that value so that they are more attractive to the services that you provide than actually the money that they have to give you for it. It's really important that they realize that's important because people spend money. They spend money on cars and houses and college educations, on clothes, gambling, whatever. But if they look at dentistry, it's like, oh, well, what will insurance cover? I said, well, what did insurance cover for those Louis Vuitton shoes? Or what did insurance cover for your Mercedes in the parking lot? Did they pay for that? But for dentistry, we've sort of set up like the money is the issue. Money is only one of like 15, 20 different issues. The real issue is trust. So how do you establish that trust rapport? Well, it's like, where's your office? Is it a nice neighborhood? Is there trash around your office? Is it clean? Is it nice shrubbery? How about your website? Do you have a kick-ass website? Our website is 1,200 pages. We have over 780 5-star Google reviews, and we have 3,500 5-star Bird Eye reviews. Thanks to you. I appreciate that because we didn't have that many reviews until Bird Eye. So the website's very important. That has to be very comely. Do you put people on hold? How's the telephone? Big deal. That's my biggest pet peeve. What do I hate more than anything else in my life? Calling a dental or doctor's office, because I get into the phone tree, if I'm lucky, I get put on hold usually, then I got to listen to an infomercial about how great their practice is for 4 or 5 minutes, only to be picked up and said the doctor can't talk to me because he's busy seeing a patient. What's a good time for him to call you back? Well, I'll tell you what's a good time, right now, because I'm on the phone for 4.5 minutes. I said, call me on my cell. Well, can I have the doctor's cell? He doesn't give out his cell phone. You want my cell phone? I'll give it to you, 203-209-7029. Call me anytime. It's on my business card. It's on my website. If a patient wants to get in touch with me, they can call me. So all these little touchstones from, website to phone call to what is it like when they go into their office? Are they greeted by name? And if they're a patient of record, they will be because we have a picture of every patient in their appointment book right there. It's on a computer. And if it's a new patient, we're not seeing 15 new patients an hour. If someone comes in for a 10 o'clock appointment that you don't know, it's probably a new patient. They go, oh, you must be Dr. Tao. Nice to see you. We've been waiting for you. Can I get you a cup of coffee? They are made to feel so good by the time they walk into my chair, into my office, that when I walk into that room, it's like, the star of the show is walking in. I have to blow it. How do I blow it? Not looking at them, not making eye contact, as my friend Bob Levine says, not looking at them eye to eye, knee to knee, not being at their level, making them feel comfortable. And then I say, how can I help you? And then sometimes that's an interesting question because you know this because you've been practicing dentist. Sometimes they get angry. You don't know why I'm here. Or they go, what do you mean? How can you help me? You're the doctor. They'll do something like that. And then I'll realize their level of fear and their health and what I need to do. I have to back off a little bit. I go, I'll tell you something. Being in a dental office is one of the scariest places to be. I know that. And then this is a story that I haven't not shared with your audience. How do I know that? Because I also am a dental patient. I've lost 9 teeth. I have 23 crowns. I've been in 2 severe bike accidents. I've broken my jaw twice over the handlebars of a bike. The first one was when I was 8 years old and ended up in a hospital for 2 days. And I had to drink through a straw. And that was before endodontists were in Connecticut. There were only 2 in the state of Connecticut. So my high school career, I went with 2 little brown stubs in the front of my mouth. People used to call me broken teeth or brown teeth or whatever. So it didn't bother me because I was 8 years old. I got used to it. It's like this is what I've been my whole life. So I'm really aware of what my patients go through. And I think that's very important for us to be empathetic. Now, being empathetic doesn't mean that you feel it. It means you understand it, that you understand where your patients are at. And most doctors, including myself at a younger age, I was so involved in like the pocket depth, the caries, the TMJ, all the measurements, the things that are important to us. They're not important to the patient. What's more important to the patient than getting good care is making them feel that they're heard and that we have that strong human relationship, that human connection. Everybody wants a human connection. If I meet you at a meeting, Len, and you say, "Hey, Mike, how you doing?" and you walk by, I go, "What's up with Len?" If I do that to you, I'm aware of that. Don't ever brush anybody off. They're aware of that. You know that at meetings, you see a bunch of people, they're talking to you, then all of a sudden somebody else comes by, they go over there. Patients want to be heard and they want to be paid attention to. I was way too fast early in my career. It was like, "Hey, how you doing? Anything questions? Just let me go," and I'll be out the room. Now it's like, "I'm here now. Is there anything else that I haven't made clear to you?" "No, I'm clear." I go, "No, now's a good time." And I sit back and I act like I have all the time in the world. And I give them that moment. And in that moment, there's that connection. I don't leave them. And then I hand them my business card with my personal email and phone. I go, "If you have anything that you want to talk about, or if you go home and talk to your spouse or child or parent, and they want to call me, here's my number." And I hand it to them and I take that moment. That is very, very powerful.
I think that's really great. A couple of things that you had said. You talked about how I always say you have to read the room. You have to know what's going on when the patient. You have to establish how they are. If they're scared, if they're nervous, if they're whatever it is, you have to know how to be able to treat them, or they're not going to buy from you. You mentioned it's like a layup for you. You had the referral coming from the general dentist. You've got the great reviews. You've got the great website. If someone comes in and you can't sell them, that's on you. You messed up somewhere. And I agree with you 100%. But all the things that you talked about, all the ways you the customer service, you need to be paying attention to this, because this is exactly what I did for so many years in my practice. And remember, similarities here. We have very successful practices. We're fee-for-service practices. We're high-end practices. And those are some common things that we had in our practices and got the patients to say yes to treatment because of the way we treated them. So my wife just had plastic surgery. She had a full hysterectomy and a tummy tuck and a fibroid removal just a few weeks ago. We went around to a couple of consults with some friends gave us. And the doctor she chose, the woman at the front desk, her name was there. It was Director of First Impressions, which I think was an amazing way to set the boundary. And that we're so happy with the way things have turned out. But those are the little things that make a big difference.
Was that New York or Florida?
No, that was in Florida.
They just lectured for a plastic surgeon 2 weeks ago, and they have a director of first impressions also.
Yeah, so it's a really great way. You set the environment there. So now, speaking of environment, my next thought is, how do you recommend creating this impeccable office environment? I know you talked about a couple of things, but I'm sure you have a little bit more specifics that you want to go into.
Yeah, so I look at my office as a really fine restaurant. So in my book. Actually, in the title, above the title of my book, I have an endorsement by a guy named Danny Meyer. You may or may not know him. He is the main restaurateur in New York City. His first restaurant was Union Square Cafe, which a lot of people know. Then he did Gramercy Tavern. Then he did 11 Madison Park, which is the #1 restaurant in the world. And then he has a Michelin star restaurant in the Museum of Modern Art, the only one in the world. And he's a phenomenal restaurateur. And what he brought was high-level customer service to reasonably priced food. And you get a great experience when you walk into his restaurant. And he's my mentor. He's the person that I have looked at outside of dentistry to build the practice. Now, your customers and your viewers may know him as the founder of Shake Shack. So once he founded Shake Shack, he became a billionaire. He was a very successful restaurateur, but once that went public. And he is the man in hospitality. You mentioned his book, Setting the Table, to anybody in the hospitality industry, and they go, "Oh, Danny Meyer." Yeah. And so not many people know him outside of hospitality. So how do you set all that up? There's a lot of different things that you need to do. You need to provide unbelievable clinical care. And that's not what my book is about. That's a given. Most patients really don't think there's that much of a difference between the different doctors. They can't judge that. How do they know if I've eliminated the pocket or bonification? If it's the front tooth, yes. But most of what we do, patients can't see. They know if they felt any pain and how they were treated. So I'm going to put that off to the side. The other two things that we look at when we're reviewing restaurants, hospitality. You've heard of the Zagat survey, which is no longer around, but it was around for many years. They looked at service, hospitality. Okay, and service and hospitality was one. Decor was another. And food. So I look at food as the dentistry. So what can make us different? Well, assuming you're a good dentist, your decor can make a difference and your service. And decor is pretty simple. It's the lighting, it's the music, it's the smells in the office. And, I have an advantage. I've been doing this for this same type of thing. I haven't changed the way I practice in 35 years. The way I practiced on day one is the same way I practice now. I've gotten better at it. But the skill set that I wanted to bring to the office hasn't changed too much. So what you're looking at with me is someone who's like, it's got very easy for me to do it because I have a trained staff, I have a great website, and I have a reputation. But I had no reputation when I started. I was just a young 32-year-old kid, competing with 5 other periodontists in town. But there's the interesting thing. I wasn't competing with them at all. I was only competing with the patient, what the patient wanted to spend their money on and who they wanted to spend their time with. So I made my office really nice. I bought Ansel Adams prints. I have nice artwork. There's never any garbage. It's cleaned every day. The windows are cleaned. We have a cleaning schedule. So the windows get cleaned every 3 months. The carpet gets replaced every 2 years. It gets shampooed every 4 months. Okay? We have a cleaning staff every night. So you can eat off the floors of our practice. And they're shiny. They look really, really clean. We're sterile. I still do implants under sterile technique because it creates a nice impression for the patient. The data says you don't have to, but when you're having implant surgery, it makes a difference if it looks that way. We have beautiful flowers when you walk in there, and we have nice music playing. I have a checklist for everything in my office, from the music to the lighting, etc. And I do crazy things. I'll leave a piece of trash on the front lawn and see how long it takes for somebody to pick it up. Nobody's as particular as I am. I'll take a light bulb out and I'll turn a light bulb, I'll unscrew it. I'll see how long it takes. Usually nobody sees it, which this is amazing. So I have a gift, but it's also a liability. I see everything, so I get annoyed by sounds, by music, by light, but I don't like it. I walk into a restaurant, and I did this on New Year's Eve. I walked into a well-known restaurant. I'm not going to trash the restaurant, and my wife got us in the day before, but they didn't tell us it was price fixed. And we went out at 10 o'clock. It was in Manhattan by Central Park. And we got in there. As soon as I walked into the restaurant, I got a bad vibe. And I'd been there before. They just lost their Michelin star. I'm wondering why, because the food was good. I saw why. Because they didn't treat me well. They didn't welcome me to that restaurant. Because the day before, I had lunch at 11 Madison Park, the #1 restaurant in the world. I got a tour of the kitchen there without even asking. I got special treats. They send me gifts over there. There was over the top. And a guy named Will Guidara, who wrote the book Unreasonable Hospitality, created all that there. He took what he learned from Danny Myers and took it to a different level. So in this restaurant in Maria, I walk in and they go, check your coat. So I take off my coat and I hand it to the man. He goes, no, I don't do that. He points to somebody else. Could you imagine that? If a patient comes in and hands you something, no, I don't take that. I don't take the dirty garbage. Let my assistants will clean that up for you. So I'm thinking, like, who's this jerk? And then a woman spins around twice and then doesn't know where to go and says, follow me. And she walks one direction, the other one. And the place was dirty. It was messy. And I sat down and I opened up the menu and there's 6 courses. I just wanted to get a bowl of pasta because I had already eaten. And I go, this is price fixed? They go, yeah, $450. But you know what that is in New York by the time we're done with tip and everything else? You're at about $700. So it was about a $1,500 meal. And I only wanted to stay there for 30 minutes. And I already had a bad experience. And I looked at my wife goes, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was price fixed. I go, this price fixed? Well, it's supposed to tell you. Because I looked at the menu, it wasn't price fixed online. So I said, we got to go. I said, I can't stay. So she goes, how can you leave? I said, I'm not spending $1,500. She goes, they have charges. I said, I don't care. We'll worry about it. And I walked out of the restaurant. And I walked into another one and I got right in, ate at the bar, a really nice restaurant across the street. My experience today was terrible. Now, I'm not going to say online because I don't want to ruin someone else's business, but I'm never going to refer anybody to this restaurant. It's not a good place. It happens in every dental office every day. You walk into the dental office and you get bad service. You walk into a medical office, bad service. Where do you get bad service? In 98% of the facilities that you walk into, whether it's a medical facility, a grocery store, a restaurant. I'm extremely particular, as I know you are too. It's important that it looks good. So decor is something that every dentist can fix and look around. Look at everything. If you don't have a good eye, call some artisans. Some people who have good eyes go, what's wrong? In service, that's a whole different topic. We can go on for hours about that one. Hire people that are phenomenal about giving good customer service. Every day people say to me, goes, how do you get such great people? How did you train them? I go, I didn't. I hired good people, and if I don't have a good person working there, it was my fault because I do most of the hiring, which is another topic, which is I've just been blogging about the last few weeks, all about hiring.
It's interesting. When you see or read the bad reviews for dental practices. What you see is almost always about the customer service. They don't know that they had a bad crown place. They don't know that they had a filling that doesn't fit the tooth. There's an open margin. They don't know those things. They know how they were treated. They know how they were felt. You may hear some things about pain, but it's always the customer service that people write about because that's what they remember about the most. And if you make them feel good, they're going to come back and refer their friends and family to you. And that's the most important thing. So you kind of delved a little bit into my next question, which is how does somebody build a team that is so focused on wow experiences? And I know you said that you hire the right people, but they still need a little bit of training. And I think that people are here saying, well, I want to do that, but my team isn't capable of doing that. And I think the big thing I hear about all the time, because I talk about these things, and that's one of the things I hear. So how do you recommend someone builds a team that can deliver this wow service?
Yeah, I just recorded yesterday. I do a weekly blog that goes out, which your readers can get, your listeners can get. And I do an Instagram post, and then I do about 5 to 8 minutes on a topic. And I started doing one yesterday on how to hire, and I ended up we ended up turning into four blogs because there's so many little aspects of it. Now, I have a patient named Stu Leonard. I don't know if you know that name. He's the owner of the largest grocery store chain in the United States, privately owned. And he's got a great team. And you walk into Stu Leonard's and it says, rule number 1, the customer's always right. Rule number 2, reread rule number 1. So I said to Stu, and his father just passed away. Stu was my age. I said to him, I go, how do you get such great employees? He goes, well, when we hire them, they watch a video that my dad made in 1960. I go, yeah. I go, how long's the video? He goes, 20 minutes. He goes, and then what? He goes, then they go to work. And what he was telling me is he created a culture. So if you have a bad culture in your office, you can't really have great employees because the culture is toxic. So we have 22 employees, including myself. And is everybody great? Yeah, everyone's pretty great in our office right now. Are they great every day? No. When they're not great every day, we say, hey, I'm just making this name up. Amy, how you doing? Good. I said, I noticed that you're feeling like this way. Everything okay? I'll give them a moment. Yeah, I was a little off. And then, yesterday one of my employees said to me to go, well, I appreciate you that you tolerate me being bipolar. Now, she's not bipolar, but she sometimes is moody and sometimes she's nasty. And I just sort of sit back. I go, I don't mind if you're nasty, but could you just do it one-on-one to me in the room and not in front of everybody else? It sort of brings everybody down. She goes, you're right. I'm working on that. I'm taking a meditation class. And we'll have a little talk about it. And the person just lost her father. So she's going through something. And I said, I know that there's a void in your life now. I said, let me be your dad for a while. That's why we made sort of light out of it. And then, I talked about the elephant in the room. So when you got to create a great team. So how do you do it? I think that it all starts with the top. You ever walk into a grocery store and you ask for something and they're nasty to you? And so when that is, it could be an hourly employee that's just stocking oranges or something. And you go, do you have any cilantro? They go, I don't know. So when that happens, I don't get upset with that employee. I look for their boss. And when I see their boss, they're usually miserable. They're walking around. One of my favorite stores in town switched the manager. And it's still one of my favorite stores for the food, but I don't want to talk to anybody in there because they're miserable because the manager's miserable. My son used to stock groceries there. So it all starts with the doctor, being a good leader. And that's the problem. Most doctors don't want to lead because it's not in their personality. Most doctors just want to fix teeth. Sorry. Here's a wake-up call. You can't just fix teeth. You got to build a team. And if you can't do it, you have to hire the right person that's going to help you, and you have to support that person. So there aren't that many leader dentists out there, but to run a really successful practice, you have to be a leader dentist. And you know as well as I know, there are some practices that are really successful with dentists that are leader dentists that just really create great relationships, but they're not that good at the dentistry, but people love them. They go, I have patients that have been seeing their same dentist in Manhattan because they love him and they come into my office and they just carries everywhere. They go, I really love that guy. I go, well, maybe, I don't know, whatever. So, because patients can't really know. So how do you create that? I think you have to create your values. And what's the values that create we call them core values, as every business does. And we have 5 core values in our practice. Number 1 is integrity. Number 2 is teammates. So you got to have people that want to work with you and have good team spirit. 3 is you got to be servant-hearted. You want to be able to serve. So that's very important. Those are the 3 of the 5 core values that are non-negotiable. You have to be a teammate. You got to be servant-hearted, and you have to have good integrity. If you don't have those things, you can't work in our practice. Now, you can work there, but it just won't work out. The other two are you got to be health oriented. You got to take care of yourself, which I think is important. Healthier people are better employees. They also are more related to health, and we're in the healthcare business. So I just don't fix teeth. I talk about the whole body. So I have relationships with, people in cardiologists, psychologists, acupuncturists, therapists, everything. So we work with a great team of related specialties. And the fifth one is you have to be education oriented. You want to be a constant learner, and you want to be able to teach what you know to your patients. So my staff, my team is always teaching. So that's what we look for. And it starts with, there's 5 ways that we hire. One, we have a kick-ass ad. We put it out on Indeed or something else. We get about 20 people that come a week, which is a lot because most people say we can't get anybody. 2, they fill out a resume. 3, they do a culture index, which is a personality profile that tells me what kind of person that they are. If I don't get the culture index and the resume, I do an interview. 4, if I approve of the resume and the culture index, then we do a FaceTime interview. Taylor does that. She does a great job. If they pass that, then they come in for a Blink interview. That's number 5. And they're there for about 20 minutes. And we just say hello to them, and we see what they look like. If they shake your hand, do they look you in your eye? Do they have dirty fingernails? Are they well-dressed? Do they come on time? All those things. If they get through that 5-part process, then we have them back for a working interview. Out of every 200 employees, 1 makes it through that 5-part process. We hire very slow, and we fire fast. But I usually never fire anybody. They usually leave. But that doesn't happen because they're vetted so well by the time we get to that point. I can't remember the last time I fired somebody. But people leave. And why do people leave our practice? Usually because they move, or because they don't have the same values, and they try to do something and it just doesn't fit. Because the team, I don't really have to do this. The team takes care of it for me. If I have somebody who's the rotten apple, my team says, hey, this isn't working, and they will either change. They'll get some coaching or they'll leave. Now, once they're in the office, there's a whole coaching program for that. But it's important to get the right people in the right seats. We talked about that in what's called EOS, which is a entrepreneurial operating system, which is a book written by, here it is right here. I was just talking about yesterday. This book here, Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman and Mark Winters, is all about how to hire the right people and get them in the right space. Because you don't want me answering the telephone. I'll tell you that right now. That's not where I belong. You want me talking to patients and doing the surgery. That's pretty much it, and a little bit of marketing. So that was a long riff on that one.
No, that's fine. Look, for those that listen to my podcast, I usually have a lightning round Q&A, and I had talked to you, Mike, about it before we started. But you know what? This was really great content, and I didn't want to break up the podcast and end it a little early. But we're coming up to the time that we have. So no big deal on the Q&A. My question for you is, how do people get the book? How do they find out more about what you or how you help practices or things that you do? How do people contact you? Give all that information now.
First of all, you can follow me on Instagram, which is Dr. M Sonick, DRM Sonick, because I put out weekly content. And you can buy my book, Treating People, Not Patients, this guy here, on Instagram. Now you can buy it on Amazon. You can also go to my website, which is my name, michaelsonick.com, and you can join our mailing list, and you can get weekly blogs from us. We also have an online teaching program with a workbook. So we have a full course workbook that comes with that you can have 10, 15-minute modules to teach your team. This has been very effective. You do it once a week for 10 weeks. You watch a 15-minute video, and then you pass out the workbook, and your team fills out the questions. Simple questions like, what do you notice about the office that needs to be changed? Or what do you notice about how we treat patients? It really starts to ask them questions that people think about, but they never really think about. So you can get that. So I guess the book's on Amazon. You can also get it on my website, but it goes to Amazon. And the course workbook's there. And if you want me to speak or come in and talk to you about things, you can always just contact me through the website.
Well, that's great, Mike. Thank you so much. This was very impressive. I love the book. Highly recommend you read it. If you like this episode of the podcast, please share it with your colleagues. Please recommend it. Please like it. Please review us. Anything you can do to promote this podcast, I would greatly appreciate it. I also want to re-thank the sponsors, both the Doc Sites and Dental Intelligence, for their support always. And as I end all of my episodes, my podcasts, my seminars, my webinars, I live my life by 2 words. Remember, your reputation matters. Until the next episode, we'll talk to everyone soon. Mike, thanks so much for joining me. Talk to everybody. Bye-bye.